You're listening to Outside Source on the BBC, and somebody else has come to see us at the Outside Source table in the centre of the newsroom. It's our reporter Pádraig Belton to talk about the future of mobile technology. We've been talking lots already, Paddy, about the world's biggest gaming conference, E3, happening in California. But you've been, well, telling us a bit more about how much people in the US spend on mobile stuff.
Well, we really are entering exciting times for the Humble app. You were just talking about big numbers a bit earlier. Well, this week, Apple Chief Executive Tim Cook announced that the App Store had pipped 100 billion downloads. That's one to think about. Android's Google Play is about half that, but it's growing faster. It's particularly big in the developing world. And then this week, you've got Microsoft rolling out Windows 10, and a big goal for them has been their own App Store and getting rid of a lot of the junk in their trunk. They've got sort of a lot of low-quality apps that the other ones have been curating out. Yeah, last year, at least in America, was the first time that people spent more time accessing the internet through mobile apps than from desktop and mobile web browsing combined. So when we look at the future of the internet, it's increasingly something we've got in our pockets or on our wristwatches.
And so it's no longer something we sit down at a desk to access on a screen, and maybe in some parts of the world it's always been thus, that maybe that generation of devices has been skipped and mobile is the first place that people are interacting with the internet.
I think that's certainly part of what we're seeing. The good news for Apple is they do quite well in the developed world, so their revenues are a little bit higher, they're 70% higher, whereas quite neatly Android is downloading at 70% faster. I went and talked to Google's engineering director. I asked him, when Apple, April launches his Apple Watch, everyone starts asking, well, what will the killer app be that will make us want to wear it? Why do we want another piece of technology when we've already got a perfectly good one in our pocket? And he told me that the night before, maybe knowing that we'd be chatting, he'd been cooking a curry recipe that he downloaded from the BBC website, actually. Good man. And he found it incredibly helpful, he said, to have the recipe there on his wrist. And he saw a whole vocabulary of new gestures. So we've already learnt pinch and to scroll, but perhaps things with our wrists moving through data that way, cocking our wrist one way or another.
And what about on feature phones, these phones that many people listening will have that are not quite smartphone level, but at a kind of lower level of technology, but also cheaper, so more people can access them? Are there more apps being developed in new ways for those sorts of phones, as well as for the high-end stuff like the wristwatches that people are starting to use?
I think this is a big bit of why we're seeing apps as a sector really take off, and it's hand over fist. It's 76% is the amount by which app usage went up last year. And a big bit, I think, is they're optimised the constraints of what they're running on, whether that's a smaller screen or patchier bandwidth or smaller processing power than you'd have maybe on your desktop, but also the opportunities, having something that's local is there with you. You couldn't have done Uber on a desktop. And people who are working in the sector I've been talking to for this last story, they talk about the Uber of thing, chat with people, app developers. It's all going to be the Uber of this. The Uber for massage was the latest one.
Gosh, that all sounds interesting. The possibilities potentially endless there. Paddy, really interesting stuff. Thanks very much indeed for telling us about your work looking at the future of the market in apps. Great to have you on Outside Source. Oh yes, absolutely.
Watch Outside Source on BBC World News Monday to Thursday at 17 hours GMT.
And as Paddy was speaking to my right at the Outside Source table, to my left I could see on a screen